So, hey guys, hello everyone listening, and hello to all of the participants, and welcome to the second event of Square Meters Explained in Containers Explained in Square Meters. And this time we're going to be concentrating on green tech, the modular solutions for different vertical grow houses. Today we have a lot of topics we want to discuss with you. We have very competent speakers with us. And let's hope for a really great event. And yeah, we could start with the introductions of the speakers. So maybe let's start with Sergey.
Hi, I'm Sergei Llugovich, director coming from Zagreb, Croatia. My background was almost 20 years in the business information systems, and 3 years ago I decided to actually move to this vertical urban farming and food tech industry because it opened up new challenges in terms of how things progress. And that's it. We are running the farm in the center of the Zagreb, actually in the basement of the one of the most popular farmers market. We also delivering solutions, selling the solutions for the indoor, I will say horticulture, because we're getting some projects sold also from the companies like green walls, interior design, and everything. And we also provide consulting and support to the farmers how to integrate the new technologies in it. So this is in short.
Great. So welcome, Sergey. We're happy to have you here. Maybe let's continue with our next speaker, Herbert. Please introduce
Good,
yourself.
good morning. My name is Herbert Kliegerman. I'm originally from New York. At the moment, I'm in Europe, in France. I've been the curator and editor, founder of iGrow News from 2015 to present. Basically, I've been researching indoor vertical farming for these past 6 years, particularly at the moment, doing a lot of research with respect to container farming. And the container farming industry, since the pandemic, has grown enormously. Up until the pandemic, there were just major one or two companies, one company being freight farms, building containers. Since the pandemic, companies have popped up all around the world, building container farms. People realizing that localization, healthy food, is significant. And I see a very, very strong future for container farming, for greenhouse farming, indoor vertical farming, and repurposed industrial properties, basements in London, the underground, former shelter. There's a very healthy indoor vertical farm. And yeah, I see the future in indoor vertical farming for sure. iGrow News has grown from prior to the pandemic, achieving 10,000, what they call unique visitors every 30 days, to 90,000 at the moment. So the consciousness has certainly been raised throughout the world. Yeah. Nice to be here.
Great. Thank you. We're
You're
glad to
welcome.
have you here, Herbert. Okay, let's continue with Greg.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Greg Payne. I'm the founder and CEO of a company based in New York called Box for Grow. We formerly were called Grow Box. We went through a name change recently, but we've been here since 2016. Originally repurposing shipping containers into grow rooms. So a little bit the way Herbert has described them, closed environment, vertical grow rooms from mostly fairly new one-trip shipping containers, and over the past, since the pandemic, we've sold over 250 containers in the US alone. So we're a business that's sort of seen significant growth since the pandemic, and we see a big future, particularly around implementing new technology into our containers. We have a basic system, but we think that we need to invest more in R&D and partner with people to make these more accessible and more a more sustainable product for people. So I'm really glad to be here just to see if I can contribute anything to this forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. As we've understood, today's main topic is going to be the green tech. We're going to be discussing the modular and mobile solutions for growing, because what we've understood due to COVID-19 that the world logistics is now having huge crisis, and there are still many companies that are shipping goods and fresh food for many thousands of kilometers, having air transportation. Just this week, I heard that there are several companies shipping tomatoes from different types of countries with airmail, and also discussing the possibility of reducing the carbon footprint. I think this is what we have to definitely address today, because with the container and with the other mobile solutions for grow houses, it is possible to reduce the transportation of fresh food up to 99%. And I think this is great, and this is actually one step further to make the world more sustainable and make the fresh food supply chain more sustainable. And let's maybe start with the first topic about logistics. If we already touched it, what do you guys think? How important is logistics in the fresh food environment and fresh food supply chain?
Logistics, it comes down to why ship a head of lettuce from California to New York 3,000 miles? The carbon footprint and everything else involved, particularly the fact that the head of lettuce, by the time it gets to the shelf in the supermarket, hardly has any nutritional value and certainly has a very short shelf life. When you can grow it around the corner or in the basement or on the roof or in a storage shipping container, why would you utilize logistics or need logistics in transportation, particularly today, where the UK has issues, there's a pile of empty containers because there aren't any drivers to take them to the port. Same problem exists pretty much, very much off of the coast of California, where you have, I think, at the moment, 75 cargo ships waiting to pull into the port. The logistics it's almost like a orchestrated dance. And if someone's out of step, and we're quite out of step right now, I think it comes down to makes no sense whatsoever when you can utilize present technology to grow healthier food.
I also think, picking up on that theme around the UK in particular, you've seen since Brexit, a lot of globalization backlash, and now it's sort of, and also Herbert highlighted the fact that there's lack of labour, and that does in the UK directly relate to the freedom of movement. So less drivers coming from Europe, a shortage in the UK. So it makes a lot of sense to revitalise business locally and bring growth, produce growth closer to home and closer to where it's needed, farm to table, if you like. But Brexit, for example, has highlighted that negative impact or negative view of how globalization, there's a backlash amongst populations about that, and so the UK in particular is more focused inward, and you will see a lot of interest, particularly in the UK, and as a consequence in Europe.
Yeah, I could add from my side. Last evening, we got a colleague of mine called me. It's a very practical example related to the supplying fresh greens to the hotels in Dubrovnik, which is one of the most popular cities on the coast of Croatia. And actually, he told that actually we could ship them our produce from Zagreb. But then actually I explained him that in the long term, it will be much easier if they could run operations there. And then we come to the point, and then he told me, yeah, but in Dubrovnik, the property is so expensive. And then I told him, you don't need to worry about the property because we could provide you with the container farming, which you could scale, which is very important. So you could easily scale the business, and you could be close to your customers. So this is in a way one of the first premises of our company is that food should be produced as close as possible as where we live.
I would
And
like to agree with Sergey as well. Yeah, I think with Sergey we discussed previously that the most important factor for fresh food is that if you're transporting, let's say, lettuce or other greens, during transportation the greens experience shock, and the shock is not good for the vegetables and other greens and stuff like that. It also is affected by the temperature change, which is an important factor when transporting the goods.
definitely, this is what we discussed before. I spent 6 months selling the herbs and microgreens on the market, farmers market, which was just maybe 50 meters from our farm. And when I come to there with fresh basil in end of January, people were blown away. What's this happening? And then, of course, as we understand that after some time of the basil on the low temperature will get affected with the quality and everything. Actually, a colleague of mine, when she was like in the growing room, she was just bringing more and more to the market. So actually, this is this short food supply chain, which I think it's a very important concept. Very important concept.
Agree, definitely agree.
And if I could add a little bit to prepare for this conference, I little bit spent some time looking for the farm to fork strategy in EU, and honestly, I think they quite expanded too much toward sustainability, toward the best practices, toward carbon farming and everything. But I think we really need to think about actually how close is food is produced where it is consumed.
And if we're thinking about vertical farming and stuff like this, I think it is very important to mention that in a vertical farm in an indoor environment, it is a controlled environment. It's not affected by external factors like rain, too much sunlight, and anything. You can control everything that is growing there. You can control the sunlight. You can control the humidity, the water supply, and basically you all the time you can account for the crop that you will have. You will have standardized numbers, and you can have a forecast of all of your crop. And I think this is a really important part if you're thinking of fresh food supply.
Pesticide free is another benefit.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely,
Yes.
definitely that one too. Because I think when people think of indoor farming and something like that, they think that it's genetically modified and not healthy. But in this case, this is a normal, controlled environment. And
it's
Sergey, you wanted to add?
impossible. Yeah, actually, I employ two agronom engineer, and it's impossible. You could not use the pesticide. You could not use any chemistry in the closed environment because it's not safe. People probably do not understand. Then when they put the protection in the field, in the outdoor growing, you could not, for a few days, you could not access that field and you could not touch this food for 2 weeks. You know, and I think this is something what we have to push more toward. Oh, it's not the true sun, but actually plants to grow do not need the sun as it is. It needs particular spectrums of the light. So this is a big difference, in my opinion.
Well, the future is definitely indoor vertical farming. Uh, it's still in its infancy, but the future is it's obvious. There will be there in America, in the USA, you have many shopping centers that have huge vacancy factors. In cities, you have office buildings because of the realization that people can work remotely. You have, for example, in New York City, the Empire State Building has a 17% vacancy rate right now. So you will be seeing buildings, not the Empire State Building, but you'll see office buildings being converted possibly into growing. There's all the opportunity is here, certainly for indoor vertical farming. The need is here. And from a health standpoint, certainly you're eating much more nutritious and healthy produce when you're eating it that's grown in a controlled environment. No question about it. Pesticide free.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I
was going to say it's a bit about the economics too. I mean, we do import a lot of food. It's how you balance that out. You know, the countries that will suffer in terms of export produce. I mean, I'm sort of thinking on a global scale, and you know, what are the impacts around this? You know, I fully agree that we need to move to this, but it's how we build a sustainable model around the world is a concern for me.
Yeah. And I could tell, I remember when we moved to the primary produce, and then actually when we had ready our first basil to comparison, we went to all superstores and all the shops and bought all different basils. At that time, I wasn't in Zagreb, and then they sent me the pictures how actually our basil looks and the competitor's basil looks, and actually I was a little bit, sad. But then when I come there and I tried, let's say, I will not mention the company names because they don't deserve to be mentioned, but it's not food, it's the plastic. Maybe
Exactly.
it looks, for example, now we succeed to grow origami and thymian, thyme in English, and when Ivana actually give me to try for the first time, actually for the first time in my life, it was something that I tried how oregano should taste. And actually you need just two small leaves like this, and it could take all your risotto, for example. So I think this controlled environment plus short food supply chain is something where we should move on.
Exactly, and I think in this case, if we're speaking of mobile growing solutions like vertical farming, it is perfectly suitable for, let's say, environments where you can't grow 24/7 all year round. Let's say, for example, in Latvia, we have very strong winters, and it's impossible to grow vegetables and anything outside of basically outside. If you want to grow tomatoes and anything, it's impossible during the winter. So sometimes we have to import some of the plants. This is not just speaking of Latvia. Let's take, for example, Africa or other countries where it is constantly very dry and then very hot weather. You can still have container vertical farming there, and you can have vegetables growing locally in a controlled environment. And I think this is a huge benefit when we're speaking of the aforementioned logistic problems, that you don't have to wait for the food supply. It is just there.
You have food deserts in the USA where people can only eat fast food. You can put a shipping container in. There's a company in Florida. The name of the company is Brick Street Farms, and they're building their own containers. I think the name of the container company that they use is Thrive. And what they're doing is actually building pods, several containers put together. One container will be the shipping, the growing container. Another will be the packaging. And then several containers being actually a convenience store. And it's maybe a new concept for the 7-Eleven type convenience store, or the gas station type convenience store, where they will be growing food on site and also bringing in other healthy products to the shop. So it's an interesting concept, and I think it's going to work quite well.
Yeah, speaking of this concept, I actually really love the idea. Actually, in Square Meter, we have developed a concept as well. I've done some design and some drawings, especially for this concept. Well, basically, we have containers stacked on 2 levels. On the first level, you have a food preparation stations. You have these takeaway restaurants, and on the first floor, and on the main area, you have these sale booths where you can sell fresh vegetables. And on the second level, you have all of the urban farms on the perimeter. So basically, you just grow on site. And this is what Sergej is doing in Zagreb. He has a market above his urban farm, and then he just grows underneath it. We want to make this concept as well. And our first project we want to develop is actually in Germany, which we're currently working on. And we also see huge benefits behind it. And this will open a unique market niche for especially fresh food, and for people who want to get the freshest crop possible.
Absolutely.
So yeah, this is what we've been working on as well. And hearing from you, Herbert, then yeah, we have our affirmation that it's definitely something to look forward and something to develop. Moreover,
yeah, it makes a great deal of sense if you can grow it there. And of course, if it's close to a river, you can use turbine to generate electricity. If it's in a sunny climate, you can use, I guess, not that much area, but certainly photovoltaic cells. And hopefully in the future, maybe even utilizing the sun. My concept is, I've heard this, it's not original, using more or less a diabolic, not diabolic, an antenna, parabolic, antenna, and catching the sunlight and then redistributing it through fiber optics. So the end result is, as opposed to an LED light, you've got a tip of a fiber optic giving you the actual sunlight on the plant. And that would be that to me would be the ultimate, because now you're not using a natural light, LEDs, you're using actually natural sunlight, which most likely contains a lot more than we quite realize it right now. But energy certainly is an issue, and bringing it locally makes a great deal of sense. They're experimenting with growing coffee indoors, and certainly strawberries are growing indoors, and it'll expand, no question about it. It's an evolutionary piece, for sure.
Greg, you're muted, and I actually wanted to continue with you because I know you have a great experience in this field, and maybe you can tell us a little bit more in detail about what are the crops that you offer in your solutions. What are people actually growing in your solutions offered?
Well, yes, I was just going to say about Herbert's comment. I mean, I did see a building in London where they'd created a light tunnel. So it was natural sunlight filtered through mirrors to feed a growing wall. So, and I did contact the light designer because I thought that was a novel concept. So it's not quite fiber optics, but certainly reflective mirrors that filtered the light again into the plants. But yeah, I mean, our experience has been building, a number of different. We've just done a project in Hudson, New York, which is on the Hudson River for about 100 miles north of New York City, whereby they've created a container farm. It's sustainable. They're running solar to power the grow rooms. So there's 7 containers. Some of those are battery storage containers to fuel that are powered up by the solar. Then there's a cold room, set of cold rooms. There's 5 different. Well, there eventually will be 5 different grow rooms to experiment with different crops, and the purpose behind this project is to not only grow to sell locally, but also to teach people how to grow in a closed environment location, and I think there's a little bit of end of the world doomsday scenario there, but where they're gearing up to be self-sustainable. But the reality is, these things are all possible, just as you described in Florida, those pods, Herbert. I mean, this is similar to what they're doing, and we were fortunate enough to build that for them. But there are lots of other opportunities too. I see the giving people of disadvantaged backgrounds the opportunity to create their own business in urban centres, to revitalize those centres, teach them to grow, create a business, supply local markets. These, having governments get involved, create grants to allow them to build these containers, or to have them built for them, and then create their own business. I see that as a big opportunity, particularly in the US, where you see so many disadvantaged neighborhoods, and as you say, food deserts as well. But I think that's a big opportunity to create more rounded social enterprise.
No question about it. No question about it. And there's opportunity at golf clubs, ski resorts.
Yes.
There's communities. Some communities, local governments are subsidizing the growth of indoor vertical farming. I know in Paris, a friend of one of my sons has a container in Paris, and the mayor of Paris gave him some free space to put his container, to locate his container. I know in the States the same situation exists with several villages, towns that are helping to assist people to have container farming. It's the USDA has a grant program for schools. I think it's $100,000. The USDA also has a financing program. It's definitely catching on. I'm working with someone in Washington hopefully to see if we can't get indoor vertical farming into the current bills. That's what will be before Congress. Yeah.
I think also, Sergey, please continue.
Follow up on that, what you mentioned about the government support and everything. Because, for example, in Croatia, in overall agriculture, in last 10 years, they spent so much taxpayers' money on the conventional agriculture, but actually our produce decreased. So where this money went, I don't know. And then 2 years ago, I was on the greentech. And of course, on the greentech event, you have these vertical farmers, but you have also large companies selling very expensive equipment to the conventional farmers. And one of the guys actually tried to say that actually vertical farming is not economically feasible, and blah 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 blah. And I let him talk. And after the conference, I asked him one question: how much money is given from the EU funds for the vertical farming? Zero. It doesn't exist. I know the farmers who actually get more money from the substitute from the EU money than the real produce, the market value of the produce they grow.
Exactly.
So actually, I think it's very, big issue to understand the opportunity, but also involve the Brussels bureaucracy to act and to do something about it.
Yeah, I think most important factor for the bureaucracy process is that we have to show them numbers. Well, basically, and if we do our research, I guess that Greg definitely can show us some numbers on how much electricity, water consumption, and all of the other natural resources we can save. But just to sum it up, basically, using vertical farming and container farming, we can use and save up to 95% of the water used for traditional agronomy. We can save up to 99% of the land used because we built it vertically. And we can definitely get some electricity consumption reductions as well. We can save up to 85% electricity when growing in a controlled environment. And of course, we can use solar solutions and other alternative solutions for energy supply. And I think one of the main factors why to choose container farming and container vertical farming solutions is container's sole purpose was for shipping. It is a controllable unit. So basically, if you have a vertical farm, you can place it wherever in the world, and it's not like a static building. It's not like you're building a whole complex of bricks and then a mortar, and then it just stays there for, let's say, the next 100 years. You can just move the container from one site to another, reducing the pollution and then reducing actually the building materials used. And at the end, I think metal will always be a recyclable material. And so if shipping containers are made from metal, it just makes good sense to have them mobile and have the vertical farming. What do you guys think?
Absolutely. No question about it.
I just calculating the numbers if I could, because the largest Croatian producer of medical herbs and herbs, his income is 2 million euro, and he's running 200 hectares. Okay, 200 hectares. We could grow on our system on 0.6 of square meter, 360 pots of herbs per month. So it's like, even I don't know how many zeros I have to put to calculate it, you know? And
this could actually be the answer to how to feed the world question, because of the land is we're experiencing a shortage of usable land, and if we can put it vertically, it's a solution that we definitely have to think about it. And I think we need to get the government and the authorities to think about it as well. I just think we have to present them some very good valuable numbers, and then they just have to act on it. There is no other possibilities.
yes, I could comment on that because I study actually diets and following the scientific papers published about the what we eat and what we should eat. And actually, we should eat much more of the grains and those kind of things. So actually, trees which giving us those products. And what we try to do and actually achieve and succeed, and this is what we are always promoting, is actually mixing indoor and outdoor. So actually, if you want to have the trees, for example, if you want to share the trees, just a second. For example, you could get the much better, faster yield of the seedling development, and then actually you could move it outdoor and do it again and again and again. And that is also important, not just in terms of that we have to change the diet, but we have to combat the CO2 issues. So actually, combining and in my experience, okay, I coming from my country, I always from local people look like the coming from another planet, but I don't mind, maybe I come from another planet, who knows, and I don't care about it. But numbers, nobody could tell me that, and I tell to everybody I come to agriculture with the Excel and calculator, so don't tell me anything, and I think this perception and the human habits should change, and it's always this indoor versus outdoor, and most of the people will do not know. Let's do the test. Let's try something which we grow indoor and outdoor. I'm not sure are there competition. Maybe this Herbert or maybe somebody is looking for that. This could be good test in Paris. Let's give the people something grown outdoor and the indoor and express the taste.
There's a major difference usually in the taste. However, no, Paris Paris has the largest rooftop farm in the world. I think as the consciousness is raised, as more people become aware, as I said earlier, of how significant food is to good health, I think the indoor farming makes, sense, just continues to make more and more sense. It's hard to bring a negative to it. It's just about raising consciousness of governments, organizations, universities. I think it's just an evolutionary piece, as I mentioned before, and it's a process. And certainly the pandemic has helped to speed up the process. That's for sure. Yeah.
If we touched already the subject of pandemics, maybe let's continue. Maybe guys, you would like to share your opinion on how COVID-19 has impacted this whole process of vertical farming, of mobile solutions in growing and in farming in general. Because I think, as I've mentioned in the previous conference we had about container architecture, COVID-19 has impacted many industries, and some of them it has impacted very well. And now we are experiencing a paradigm shift, and we're experiencing a change in technology. And basically, this is a new evolution, believe it or not. But this is how it is. And then maybe guys share your experiences about how COVID has impacted your daily lives and the industry in general.
All I can say, Peter, is that it's been very good for my business.
I can say the same thing as Greg. I would say prior to the pandemic, we've only been selling pre-owned containers in another business that I have an interest in for the past 2 years. And prior to the pandemic, we had sold 7 or 8 containers. Well, a year and a half later, or so, we're now up to 36 pre-owned containers that we've sold. There's no question that the consciousness has been raised because of the pandemic. And as I mentioned, I think earlier, on iGrow News, we've gone from 10,000 unique visitors every 30 days to 90,000. And certainly that's the positive part. The negative part, we all know the negative part, how many people have suffered death and illness and continued illness. So yes, there's always a negative and a positive. I believe all we are. Sergej, as you said, you might come from another planet. I think we all come from another planet. We're all a bit of stardust and energy. And basically, negatives always bring out positives. It's a flow.
And it all depends how you look. I could tell you, unfortunately, for our business, because in the beginning we were selling solutions, and when the pandemic came in, and we had the earthquake together with the pandemic, if you remember,
yeah.
It was the big earthquake, actually two of them in last year. And I just left the tenure position on the government-owned university, and actually everything fell apart for me personally, you know. And actually, I finished from the cathedra teaching the students selling our primary produce herbs on the farmers market. But for me personally, it was something very positive. We get so much press regarding it. We developed new concept, new recipes. So actually, all this pandemic was maybe not on the bottom line, how to say, of the business, but at the other side, on the personal, my personal level, and Vesela Motika as a company, it had a very good effect because, you know, as we say, what do not kill you make you stronger.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it, and yeah, from my side.
Actually, there's one more topic I would like to go back to. Previously, we talked about, we mentioned the food crisis in the UK, and maybe let's discuss a little bit more this topic because, as I've read, the most important aspect is, well, they're throwing away most of their crops right now, but that is due to the logistics and also due to lack of labor because of the Brexit. And in my opinion, that's just what I think. But basically, I think when you have vertical farming, you can actually utilize and make the labor power more efficient. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
It's more
absolutely. I think,
predictable.
yeah,
It's more predictable.
yeah.
You're
So the
not dealing.
efficiencies come through that, don't they, Herbert? I mean, because it's
Yeah.
predictable.
Yeah. You're not dealing with the consequences of labor shortages, logistics, climate.
Climate.
Yeah, climate. Look at California now. I mean,
Yeah.
they've had everything that nature can throw at, and then some. And yeah, it's a major issue. We are obviously going through again an evolutionary piece in some way, but certainly it just makes a great deal of sense, and I think it's recognized. I spent over 40 years in the real estate business in New York and discovered neighborhoods prior to maybe other people and made investments in neighborhoods. And I think here it was the same issue. Discovering indoor vertical farming came through me wanting to possibly repurpose a industrial building near Green Bay, Wisconsin. And it was way too large. It was 300,000 square feet. That's what actually caught my interest in indoor vertical farming. My wife mentioned it to me, and then I started to research it. And I think it's just a matter now of organizing it in such a way so that it's beneficial for everyone, not just for the entrepreneur, uh, but for the people who will be consuming it, the people who will be working at it, and to be done in to be really creating a overall organizational system where, as I think Greg mentioned, bringing jobs to people who don't have jobs and also teaching them about healthy food. Schools have programs. There's a gentleman in New York, he's called the Green Bronx Machine, Stephen Ritz, and he's teaching young students every day how to grow hydroponically. And they bring that home, and they bring home the lettuce or whatever their produce is. And that's how change evolves. Yeah, it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, a good example of that is we have one of our boxes placed in Brooklyn, New York, and we're teaching people to grow, or our partner is teaching people to grow, and there's a lot of interest out of the Brooklyn schools now to place one of these boxes in every schoolyard. So they not only generate income for the school, but they also give young people another life skill, how to grow, to appreciate fresh food. And that's just, again, alludes to everything that both Herbert and Sergei have said, in terms of giving something back is part of this, but also, the important thing for the future is to make sure that people understand more about healthy food and how we can do it. We don't have to bring it in from miles away. We can do it right here.
Absolutely. Again, without
Sergey, you're muted.
pesticides.
Sergey, you're muted if you want to say something. Oh, you're good now.
I would just like to mention a little bit about this. In a way, I will say bullshit of no people to work for. Probably industry, when I come to some conference, I like to tell them, what are you doing? I say, I'm trying to fix food system. And then large company told me, but what's wrong with system? It's a lot of money coming from the taxpayers, lot of. I said, no. Technology is cheaper, food is more expensive, and less quality. So I think it's a lot of lobbying in the media about these issues. Because now the industry, which were learned to pay pennies to the workers, are not making millions, and then, now they are complaining and communicating in this way. My farm from my grandfather was small farm, permacultural farm. Based on this small farm, relatively small farm, run by him and my grandmother, he succeeded to educate two sons in the capital of the Zagreb. One became the PhD. This is my father, and another son also finished the university. So it was like 40 years ago, 50. I don't know what's fundamentally changed, except that technology increased. So actually you could do much more with less manpower. So I don't understand where the problem is. Problem is in different. Problem is that prices are down in the tax systems, and it's not just the shortage of the people. It's the shortage of the knowledge. It's the shortage, as you Greg say, it's very important to give to people to know. You have this saying, learn man how to fish and you will feed him for a life. You know what I mean? Because everybody, even on the balcony, could grow something and enjoy that food. So I'm very skeptical about these big topics in the media about the shortages. Because why? Because of course they're looking then for another support for the government, for another support from the I'm a little bit getting emotional to this, because I am urban farmer, but I working 5 to 11 like any ordinary farmer in any ordinary world, And when I saw all this high-tech equipment, packaging machines, like if you were on fruit logistics, it was like you couldn't pass through all this machinery, and now they say we have problems with the people. I think the whole system is broken if we talk about the food system, and definitely system and should be emerged into the new one should start from the bottom up. And with modular container or prefabricated modules, this is the way to go.
I would like to really agree with Sergey, because I agree that there is a lot of lobbying from traditional agronomists from their side, because I can say from an example in Latvia. since my childhood, I've always thought that agronomists and people working on the field and yeah, basically everyone in the agricultural industry is poor. But this is a wrong assumption. And as I was growing older, I understood that those are actually the people that are most profitable because they can, if you have a bad crop, let's say you have a really hot summer and then at the end you have like a week of really strong rain, your crop is ruined. But you can always account for it to the government and they will give you subsidies for the lost crop that you have. When we're speaking of vertical farming, you exclude this out of the equation. And this is really great, but yeah, the lobbying from the traditional agronomists, I think it's because of the big money behind of the whole thing. Because as I understand, as I remember from my childhood, always I've been told that the agronomists they are poor people and just don't go into agronomy and don't think about growing. Just think about working with your mind, and there's the big money behind it. But no, as I was
But you
growing older,
could
I
grow the
understood.
food with your mind, you know.
Yeah, as I was growing older, I understood. I actually saw the profits from the vegetable growers and from the traditional people working in agriculture. They are the ones buying the most expensive cars, and they are the ones living their best lives. But no one is telling you this. They're just depending on the subsidies, and it's huge industry. And I think we're in a change for it, and then vertical farming is a way to go. Maybe you guys can add to this.
Not really. I think it's. I think we
Because
said it. I really. Yeah,
I think we have here two guys from Eastern Europe and two Americans, you know,
Yeah.
and one living in Europe. So actually, the whole concept of this food system, let's call it that way, because it's in a way, you know, it's strange because what I heard that in US you have completely different schemes of the support in the food industry than in the Europe. Is it true, Gregor?
In terms of, sorry, so again, in terms of what?
Government substitutes.
subsidy.
Yeah, I think,
yes. The
yeah,
government subsidize the outdoor farmers.
yeah,
Not only that, the outdoor farmers can have crop insurance if their crop doesn't quite make it. And I think if you look at the government subsidies and the insurance and so on, there's huge sums of money being given to the farmers.
yes,
No question
absolutely.
about it.
Yeah,
They're always getting subsidies. That's one of the biggest issues, I think, in Congress from time to time about how much in subsidies the farmers will get. Yeah. I mean,
which
it's
begs the
basic, you
question,
know.
really.
Yeah, it's a basic question. Exactly, Greg. You know,
Yeah,
it's a basic question, and it's we have the three basics of life: food, shelter, and clothing. You know,
Yeah.
pretty much. That's but food is first.
but also, Herbert, it just makes you wonder about the efficiency of farming if they need to be propped up continually. So the current model doesn't seem to work, is what I mean, really. Um,
No, the current model has worked in the past,
yeah,
even though in the early 1900s, Henry Ford talked about localization of farming.
yeah,
Yeah, so it's nothing new, but I think I think it's a process. I think it's a cultural issue where farmers don't like to make change. I think it's also a very strong economic issue where you have, factory farms, may it be for cattle or for production of soy or wheat, tremendous industry. You've got the equipment that goes with it. So you're talking about almost like they don't want to be our partners necessarily.
Yes, but they are. I could share our experience when I was doing my MBA in London. I done the analysis of the first. I took the retail chains and look, actually founded their website presence and compared the market share growth. And curve was very following it. And that time I used to work for Pfizer doing digital strategy for the UK, and actually I done the similar analysis in the industry. So curve was again similar. Better website, internet presence, better market share growth. What I could see in Croatia with our clients, that actually the people who understand what we do and don't make piece of us in a way, actually they're getting better and better. They're getting voted as leading farmers in Croatia. I will not mention any names, but what I could see actually this, because whole my career is the adoption of the business to the new technology. It's similar what I saw in 20 or something years ago, in before even .com boom. What I could see now in the classical agriculture or convenient agriculture.
Mhm.
So it's
Yeah, it's here. The conscious. I keep using the same phrase. The consciousness has been raised. The awareness is here. It's now about the industry really being so early on. It's about the formation of major players, minor players, community players, government players. It's the legalities of growing indoors, the insurance factor for growing indoors. There's it's a whole new it's a whole new industry for sure. For sure.
I think we are now in the phase of Geoffrey Moore wrote even in '91, crossing the chasm. This concept actually we have to go to overcross this gap between early ideas and early adopters to the early majority. And when we succeed in doing this, I think everything will move on. Because it's the funny in a way what you say, Herbert. People, I talk with one of the leading European brands in retail stores. And we could now we calling it Monster, maybe Flipper. We do not have the name of the system, but which is the system which on 12 meters high and 9 meters in total, so 9 square meters,
Mhm.
we could grow 15,000 pots of herbs. 15,000, and
Incredible.
this is the amount, and this system is working. I could put it in the place in 20 days.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the exact amount how much they sell.
Right.
But I don't know. I don't know which leverage to use to actually to make them use such a system.
Hmm.
And
No, I
for
think it
example,
will come with time.
for this system, we calculated one agronomist could handle 4 of this system.
Wow.
So you have one person handling 60,000 pots per month. Of course, you need some space to store the substrates. But I'm talking about the system which should be in controlled environment, so less than 20 square meters.
Wow.
So where is this leverage? And I don't know. Even I try to. I know the guy who is the larger seller of the seedlings in Croatia. And he say, what you do, this is bullshit, blah, blah, blah. This is what I do. Yeah. Okay, I say, okay, let's do the bet. Here in Croatia, we like to eat lamb. I say, okay, let's compete. Your way of growing and my way of growing. And who lose? He paid the lamb. I say, oh no, I don't bet. Ah, no, you don't bet. So when I try this, I don't know what to do because I could accept bet for the one lamb, to eat it. But to give for free system worth of it's I don't know. Maybe this conference open up some new opportunities.
Yeah, that's why we're doing all of these, just to inform people about the possibilities. And I think this will come with time because, in general, people are rejecting change. That's just in our nature. And since we're in the early maturity phase of this container farming and in vertical farming, we still have a long way to go. But due to COVID-19, and well, in this case, we have to say thanks to COVID-19, this is just growing in a lot better speed, and we're just catching up with the industry. And it won't take that much time for the governments and for the responding authorities to understand that this is actually a way to go, and this is a way how to reduce all of the costs, the carbon footprints, and then basically all of the resources.
You also already see, and they've been around for a while, but they're growing immensely. The companies like Plenty or Aero Farms or Bright Farms, which has received hundreds of millions of dollars of investments from people like Jeff Bezos and Google and so on, Goldman Sachs. There's, it's happening on a very, very large scale. I think we're talking about more on a smaller scale in terms of maybe, like I mentioned before, food deserts or right in town, maybe growing in a building or in a basement. I think that's the level we're talking about, but certainly on a very grand scale, the companies like Plenty, as I just mentioned, are receiving so much investment that we will see them all around the world. They're just not going to be in where they are at the moment. They will be placed all around the world.
That's right.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So another question I would really love to discuss is automation in vertical farming. How important is this factor, and what is the technology behind it, and how does it work? How do you automate basically the water supply, the electricity? How can you control it remotely? And how important is it in vertical farming and in container farming in general?
It's quite
Yes.
important.
Very
Yeah,
important.
Greg.
No, I was just going to say it's extremely important. I mean, we offer a number of solutions to automate the process in terms of the humidity, light, temperature, and then you can nutrient dosing systems, um, fertigation systems. So these things can all be automated, and it's just the beginning, really. I think there's a whole range of different technologies. Sergey probably has a better handle on this than I do, but in terms of robotics, artificial intelligence, and our machine learning algorithms, to calculate the right amount of the right environment, and certainly the right amount of nutrients and water and that sort of thing, just to be applied. And with machine learning, these things can just get better and better.
Yeah, robotics and sensors and yeah, it really is. I think it's going to get to a point, as you said, Sergey. So you can have 60,000 containers by one full-time employee.
Yeah.
It'll get. I think you'll see that in most areas of indoor vertical farming, where the employee on the large scale, on a smaller scale, I would say you'll also see as Greg and I are talking about with respect to communities, teaching people and so on in containers. But on a larger scale, you'll see robotics. It's being done right now. Ionox is a company that has robotics, and they're looking towards robotics, and really, because the more you can control the environment, the less opportunity, as we all know, for infection of any kind. So the robots are pretty sterile. They don't bring along any kind of virus or any kind of. They're pretty sterile. Yeah.
Just want to add the point on that infection. One of the benefits of container farming, particularly, is that you can lock the infection down to an 80 by 40 area, so it doesn't spread to your whole greenhouse and waste your whole crop. It's very unlikely that you'll have any of these spread things. So just wanted to point that out as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I would just like to add, we are still small scale, and I believe if we do organic farming, then I believe in organic growth, And what we changed, I think we started, the first farm was 20 square meter, then 40, 80, then 160. And every space has different, let's say, microclimate dynamics. And you have to adapt. So in a way, it's not the good thing with the container. It's that actually you have the given these, let's say, numbers, and these variables are fixed. In terms, if you are doing farms which are not in the containers or the prefabricated box, then you always have to manage the technology. This is the one thing which I wanted to comment about the automatization and everything. The second thing, when we started with the automatization. Let's do, of course, I come from the Polytechnic of Zagreb, PLC, ESP32, all these technologies are available. We were working with them, I coming from the engineering family, so there was no problem to, there was access to the knowledge and to the people and everything. But when come out with actually at one moment when we were developing this system with the guys with who I started saying, hey, look, but this do not make sense if we just spend the time on the electronics, when we will start to grow. So actually it's easy to automate when you know what you are automating. The problem is that sometimes you start with the automatization and then actually you don't know what to grow and how to grow and for who to grow. So to the listener, I will say, just start growing as soon as possible.
Exactly.
And then you learn along the way, because at one moment, if I could share the screen of this big system we were talking about, it's not, of course, finished yet. I'm not sure. How it's going? Can I share or?
Yeah, you can share. Just press the button.
Share the screen. Wait. To monitor screen sharing. Of how I do now. Share what will come out now. I don't know. No window. Okay, this is the system we are working now. And actually, this is the system which company use to store the plates for the metal work. Okay, and now what we are doing, actually, it could hold 35 tons of metal sheets, and this model is 5.5 meters, and it could go up to 12 meters, no problem at all, based on PLC. And actually, you having the shelves put out in front of the agronomists, because I spent a lot of time and everything on the ergonomy, and you could get the amazing results, But we have to wait. What I do now? You don't stop sharing. Am I stop sharing now or not?
Yeah, you stop.
You stop. So actually, we have to think also about merging the technologies, because all this container growing is actually, you have the container which is fixed, parameterized, and everything. So actually, how to utilize it for further use. Same like this system. It was developed for the storage of the metal sheets, but it could be used for the vertical growing. So actually, we have to look with the synergies between the industries and technologies and succeed with it.
Exactly. Synergy is everything.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, we're actually coming to an end of this event, and I would like to discuss the last question that we have on our agenda today, and afterwards we can just continue with the questions. So let's just try to answer this question as quickly as possible. Then let's leave like 10 minutes to questions and the Q&A part. So basically, the last thing I wanted to discuss is the hemp industry, which is growing importance in the world, and due to marijuana legalization in the U.S. and in most of the states for medical and for recreational purposes. Yeah, how do you see the future in the U.S. and in the Europe, and how do you see vertical farming involving in this? I know that Greg is working very strongly in this field, so maybe you can tell us a little bit more about it.
Sure. I mean, legalization in the US is like a train that won't stop coming. It's it's going to be eventually legalized at the federal level, which is to say that it'll be legalized across the USA. 33 states are legalized now for medicinal cannabis. I'm talking about cannabis now, not necessarily hemp, but um, and uh, and then I think the number 16 of those also have adult recreational use, which means that if you're an adult over the age of 21, you can buy a certain amount for your own use. And so recently, after the federal elections here in New York and New Jersey, legalized recreational use. Connecticut, so the tri-state area of the northeast of the US, which is a huge population base, is now legal. And from a growing perspective, in terms of what we do, we've seen enormous growth because of that. Because for a licensed grower, they need to have, when they receive their license, they need to be proven to be growing quickly. And so we have a rapid to deploy turnkey solution that can be delivered in 6 weeks. To build a large warehouse or a large grow room can take anything from 6 to 12 months. So that time to value is very, very short. Their return on investment is quick. They can be growing and producing and making money within 3 months, and the payback is probably 6 months. And here again, we have solutions from a modular perspective that actually we can build very, very scalable systems in an 8x40 footprint that can clip together, so you can build a very large facility within 2 or 3 months, as opposed to building that out over a 12-month period, and the cost is enormously different. So those are the benefits we see. We see enormous growth in this, not just in the US, but across Europe as well, and other parts of the world, South America, Australia, New Zealand, the UK eventually, particularly around medicinal cannabis. And there's different rules and regulations around this. I come from a pharmaceutical background, so GMP is a big issue in Europe, whereas not so much in the US. But there will be more compliance comes into play, and I think from our containerized solutions perspective, as long as we comply with all those things, we do have a compelling solution. not just to say us, but a number of other businesses who are in the same, who do the same thing. Here again, hemp is a similar product as well, so the same applies really.
Right.
Herbert, maybe you have something to add.
No, I think Greg really covered what I would have to add to it. It will be legalized throughout the country, as Greg mentioned. Very little doubt in my mind. Federally legalized. The states and the federal government will really enjoy the taxation of it. That's for sure.
That's
But
the
I think
bottom line.
yeah, exactly. I think Greg covered it all. Yeah, I wouldn't have much to add to it. Yeah.
Sergey, you have something to add?
No, we are quite conservative country, and for example, a friend of mine just yesterday told me he runs a chain of CBD shops, and it was allowance of 0.2 THC, and by using different method, they found him 0.22. And then he took this sample to another laboratory, it was 0.16. And now he has the whole legal procedure because of this, So it's from my side and from where I come, it's very hard to tell anything clever about this. We are not in the hemp or medical marijuana issue.
Yeah, I can add with Sergey that in Europe, I can say for Latvia that we're always the last ones to actually get something done and to get something moving. And this is unfortunate because I think we should take the Europe and whole should take an example from US how is it has affected the market and the GDP growth and actually as you guys mentioned the taxation behind the whole thing. There's just huge money and huge benefits towards that. And we hope that in Europe and in Latvia in the next decade or even in the next 5 years we can see some growth, because there are many countries that are not legalizing but decriminalizing cannabis and cannabis subproducts. And I can say for now in Latvia we just recently actually accepted CBD, and which is already a huge step. But the society is very conservative and still not open to it and don't see the benefits behind it. But I can see maybe in the next decade that something is going to change and something is going to change positively towards that. Okay, so I think we've covered most of the topics. I think there would be so many more topics that we could discuss, but maybe if there is interest, we can organize another event and go more into detail about this and actually see some and discuss some of the possibilities and some of the movements from the government side and how they look at vertical farming and on mobile solutions for vertical farming in general. And I think we can move towards the questions and answers part. And let's start with the first question, which is, what are the strangest, most exotic things you have seen being grown in containers? I know that we've discussed this with Sergey, and maybe Sergey, you can start with this.
Oof. I think the strangest request we had was the one startup who was actually selling butterflies. There was, how to say, they had the farm of the butterflies for the wedding parties, And when the wedding is, they throw away, they give to all the participants the one butterfly to fly away. But actually, the climate, the dynamics of the dynamics of the butterflies or of the wedding parties are usually in the beginning of how to say after the New Year, March, and everything. And actually, to those butterflies, they need to eat nettle. Okay, they really need to eat a lot of nettle. So actually, we were asked for the investor of that startup, can we grow indoor nettle? We do some trials, we succeed in it, but we didn't find it, how to say, we didn't find it successful. The thing what we find very successful, and I will go much more deeper in it, is Moringa, which is African tree, which is very good for the health. And actually, personally, I always prefer Moringa peel than Red Bull, because it's super healthy and super. I really like it. And actually, we grow it and then put it outside, and it's working. And on the same building where we are now, we also have the guy, actually, he's baking coffee, you know, and now we're growing some coffee trees also on our farm.
Great.
Do you have guys something to add about the exotic things growing in shipping containers and vertical farming?
The only thing I was, and I forget the name of it now, but it's the root of the mushroom plant to be used as a substitute for polystyrene. And there was a company in the UK that asked us about it, but it didn't go anywhere. But I understand it's an organic substitute for polystyrene, which sounded to me to be a terrific idea. But it came out of a US university. I can't think of anything too strange.
Yeah, neither can I. I think Sergej has the strangest one.
Yeah, butterfly.
Basically, but we accept it as a challenge, and I'll always like challenges. So.
Exactly.
Well, basically, to sum it up, it's possible to grow all of the exotic fruits, and because in containers and in vertical farming, you can have the controlled environment, and you can set the environment to be suitable to grow basically any fruit, and which is great because at this point you don't have to ship pineapples many thousands of kilometers and the other exotic fruits, and you can just grow them locally, and at the end the quality probably is not going to be that bad, because if you think about fruits and exotic fruits being shipped from, let's say, south of Africa to Europe, it's you have the freezing process in the middle and everything, and so the quality of the food decreases. But in a controlled environment locally, I think this is something to look forward to.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
Okay, the next question is the biggest issue about the container growing, at least to my knowledge, is how to grow each of the herbs and plants, as each of them require different light spectrum and nutrients that need to be used while growing in the water, as well as temperature and humidity. My question is how to get all those variables right for each of the plants.
Greg, you want to answer it?
Well, I think so. I don't really have a lot of experience in this because, I mean, to me, unless you partition these off, the different spectrums can be segregated in a container. I couldn't imagine that you would be growing a whole range of different herbs or plants in one tray, for example. But you can concentrate the lights down. It doesn't interfere. The LED won't interfere with the light next door. Put it that way. But so, but in terms of the water and temperature and humidity, again, it becomes really difficult unless you segregate separate the box into different rooms. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I wouldn't see why you would want to do it. Actually, I mean,
no, exactly.
Yeah, I
don't.
No,
it's for. Yeah. In our experience, this is, I think, answer is container farming, because some plants like one temperature, some plants needs another temperature. So combining few containers, you could have everything.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I would like to add to Sergey as well. The solution is just have different containers where to grow everything, and then basically just segment the containers in one.
Right.
Exactly.
You grow herbs, the other you grow microgreens, and then the third you grow exotic pineapples.
And if you only had enough finance for one container, you could create separate petitions within the container to do that. Yeah.
Also, and you can just like for example, one crop you can but this wouldn't be an issue. Okay, I'm withdrawing my answer.
And to answer the question is start growing, write down the variables and find each one works the best for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in general you have knowledge. You have general knowledge about how to grow plants, and it is available in the internet. And basically, when you're using traditional farming, you still control the not the humidity, but you still control the water supply for the plants, and you can just learn from that because vertical farming is not that different. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. What about, well, this is an interesting one. What about using containers to grow crops in Antarctica and the North Pole for the expeditions that are there? What about the environment there? Is it possible to set the containers there, and would it be actually possible to grow something inside of a container there?
I think the insulation values would be just enormous. I couldn't see it. I mean, we have sold boxes to Alaska, but you're talking about extreme weather, and I'm not sure you could power it to the level you need to power it and insulate it to the right level. I just don't know.
Depends how money investor has.
Of course, yeah. At this, from my side of view, from my point of view, I can tell that it's possible.
Yeah,
but it is possible.
Maybe combining iGrow technology and putting container in, and Greg, you know what I mean? If you, for example, if you use the iGrow concept where Eskimo leaves, put container in, and actually little bit play around, I think, and also what kind of crops, because some crops would grow very good on 12 or 15. This now winter small salads, how they call it in the, wait a second. Just a second. Doesn't matter. Some crops like cold weather, let's say.
Right.
Well, in general, it is possible. It's mainly about how to insulate the containers, because this is possible. You can still move them. You can still have them mobile, but it's just how you adopt the. Well,
and I think a lot of money is spent on those expeditions to Antarctica.
So money is not a problem in this case.
So actually,
no.
It will not be a problem to add some of it to.
Definitely, to just have fresh vegetables and not just live on canned food. Let's move to the last question that we have here, and I've heard people claiming that plants grow faster in a CO2 saturated area, but they turn out less nutritious. Can you control CO2 levels in a container to produce more nutritious, dense plants?
Nutrition dense control plants. The CO2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can do that. You can control the CO2.
But what about do the plants grow faster in a CO2 saturated area?
I don't know the answer to that.
I would think so, but I couldn't. I'm not an expert in that area.
No.
I also could not answer it because it's too generic question. But as Greg say, it is possible to control, of course, CO2, but effect of nutritionist level it is. What I know that some of our partners working with light equipment, they are now actually looking on the high pressure spectrum machine. So actually they could measure effect of lighting on the output of the plants. So there is a lot of research, but I'm sure if somebody go to Google Scholar, there will be plenty of papers explaining that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this would actually be a question that we will look into after this event and maybe post the answer on our social media. So this is a question that we're all concerned and would be interesting to actually do a little bit of research on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have another question. What are the best energy sources for containers to have the best growing performance?
I would say,
I think in general it's electricity. You just need electricity, and then
well, yes,
depending on the source, you get the electricity.
with the source, exactly, maybe
No,
solar
in
panels.
solar in-grid system. I'm not
Yeah.
sure how it is in America, but in Croatia you have solar off-grid, which is completely detached from the grid. And now with the new regulation, actually you could do the solar energy and actually surplus you put back to the grid, and when you need it, you use it. In the end, you just actually pay the difference. So I will say solar connected to the grid. So when you do not have so much solar energy, you put it from the grid, and when you do not have it, when you have it a lot, you sell it to the grid. So in our experience on our last project, this is what we found the most cost effective.
Yeah, and it makes the farming also more sustainable, and you have more green energy to use, which is always great.
And also use the green roofs and green walls on the containers in the winter to keep the temperature low.
Exactly.
This is very important. It is on our project we get amazing result. Like outside was plus 40, inside 25 without anything.
Right.
Okay, guys, I think we're covered for today, and it was a very great discussion we had. And thank you all the participants, and thank you to all of the listeners. I hope you enjoyed this event, and stay tuned for the next events that we're gonna organize. We're gonna make sure that we will discuss all of the interesting topics concerning for the main auditor, for the people, and so thank you all, guys, and. Make sure if you want to contact each of the speakers today, you can just the contact information is available on our website, and don't forget to network after the event. If you have any questions, just write them up, and I'm sure that all of the speakers will be happy to answer to those.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Thank you.